Hello, this is Dr. Young, and I'm going to go over your week 1 assignments. Actually, I'm going to go over the course a little bit first. So, you've probably read your syllabus by now, hopefully. And specifically for the week 1 discussion, you're going to you're basically going to analyze the difference between a leader and a manager. And this is what the whole discussion entails. So, you're going to select one of these, but basically, that's the overall topic of the discussion is kind of what is the difference between leader and manager. What does a leader do? What is a leader? And what does the leader actually do? Kind of differentiating those two. And how does it help researchers and practitioners? Or you can talk about the organizational environment and how has leadership changed in that environment. Or leaders create vision, leaders articulate vision. What's the difference between those two actions? And what are the implications? So just pick one of these and kind of go through that, talk about that. Make sure to read your lectures, which it does discuss. Read your text. It's very important to do both in this class because it is there's a lot of work in this class. So you want to make sure that you've done all the reading and everything. So I know that's common sense, but I have to kind of just say it anyway. Now, what I want to talk about, and I know these discussions are pretty, you've probably got them down by now, being this far in your program. Where this gives you the requirement. So normally when I get up to this level, you know what you're doing. So I won't spend too much time on that. What I do want to talk about is the projects, because you have projects, you have written assignments in weeks 1, 3, and 5. They're all related, and they're major assignments. When you combine them all, it's almost half of the total course points. So you really want to take your time on these, and you may need more than 1 week. So I would get started as soon as possible on 3 and 5. So specifically, the project will result in deliverables for weeks 3 and 5. The week 3 paper provides a starter version of your comprehensive examination for your DBA program study document. So you want to make sure that you get plenty of time to work on that. The week 5 paper is a leadership development approach for an organization of your choice. So I would be thinking about what organization you'd want to choose. That's actually part of your week 1, but for week 1 you're going to summarize the week 3 and 5 work, as well as looking for connections between the deliverables. So specifically, actually I'm going to go ahead and so the week 1 is the introductory summary, which we'll discuss the components of that shortly. Week 3 is your exam prep. So the final step is a comprehensive exam, and you have to pass the exam before moving on to the dissertation phase. So your preparation was, you've already went through the coursework, most of it, and everything kind of culminates here. So you should have materials to reflect back on when you're doing this assignment. But what it is an annotated outline. And you will segment the organizational behavioral field into 3 broad categories. You can have more than that, but the minimum is 3. And it gives you an example right here. And then for week 3, you would provide core topics. And we'll get into that later, but you should have at least 5 core topics for each category. So you're going to need 15 total. And then you're going to have 1 resource for each. So that's going to be week 3. And it's very specific here what you have to have. For week 5, you're creating a leadership development and succession plan program for an organization. So when you choose your organization early, that's what you're going to have this plan for. And so that program is going to have kind of an overview. You're going to select an approach that you want to build or replicate. Then you're going to have a plan how you're going to create that. You're going to take that leadership approach and, basically, like it says here, infuse it into your organization. How are you going to make everyone in line? Create a training and maybe even a change of culture. I mean, you have to figure out, okay, this is how I want the leadership in this organization. This is how I want them to approach leadership, and then how are you going to implement that? And what's the implementation look like? How are you going to change that organization and instill that approach in leadership? That's what you have to think about. And then proposal of a leadership succession perspective for the organization. So you're going to have to come up with it's the proposal for that. So that's an overview. Those are the big assignments. What I'm getting ready to go over is week 1, but week 3 and 5 are the big, the really large assignments in this class. I mean, they're more than that. I mean, this is a very, it's not like a normal class. You've got an assignment. This is part of your dissertation process. I mean, this is part of the process, so it's very important, and you need to dedicate a lot of time to this. So let's go to week 1. Let's just take some steps back and look at week 1. And honestly, sometimes, I don't know, this is just me. A lot of times it's better for me to work on the parts of the assignment and then the summary versus the summary first, obviously, because it just makes more sense to me. So, but you will need a summary, 1 to 2 pages. And your summary needs to be a 1 to 2 page summary of how organizational behavior and preparation of this comprehensive preparation document that you're going to do for week 3 will inform and enhance your design and delivery of the leadership plan that you're going to make. So, for me, I probably want to, you're going to give a summary of how organizational behavior, is going to affect your plan. Obviously, it will, and influence it. And then your study guide that you're making in week 3, how is that going to help you in week 5 develop your actual plan? So support your synthesis with research. Make sure that you use research in this class. This is very important. And I've been through the dissertation process myself, and you do literature reviews. You have to score. You have to go through just tons of research. You have to spend so much time finding articles, and this course is another practice run, and actually more than that, because it is going to result, it is taking steps towards that proposal that you're going to have. And the proposal is the first thing. You have to, you submit your proposal, it gets accepted, then you go on through to the actual dissertation. So this is very critical that you take the time to do plenty of research on this, on organizational behavior, and how it's going to influence your succession leadership development plan. And just make sure that you're using that. So for part one, your first thoughts on this comprehensive exam prep document. First thoughts, 1 to 2 pages. So you need to talk about an organizational motif or schema that helps break down the field of organizational behavior into smaller units for study. So you need 3 broad categories. You can break this down into, and then define, and it gives you an example right here. You can have more. I mean, you need to think about how this would help you study for this final comprehensive exam. So if you feel like you need to break it down in more categories, by all means you can. But make sure to define each element that you do break it down into. But you're going to use this later to study for your comprehensive exam. All right, and so for part 2, your leadership development and succession plan, it's at the beginning work on that, 1 to 2 pages. Select an organization. I would highly recommend, a lot of times the one you work at's the best one because you know a lot about it. One you were involved in. You can create a hypothetical one if you want, but it needs to be very detailed. You're going to have to make up a lot of facts, and you can certainly do that, but some people think that would be easier. Some people think it would be more difficult. I'm going to let you make that call. Or one you research. But if you're going to do one that you research, you're going to need a lot of information on that. So make sure that you can get it and access that. Summarize key details about the organization. What is it? What does it do? How would you describe its structure? Talk about culture. Talk about maybe some leadership issues you've researched. Maybe you found some news. Maybe you found some issues. Organizational crises or something like that you can talk about. And then how does the organization currently develop leaders and plan for succession? Now this might be difficult to find, I don't know, and it can be because many organizations just don't do a whole lot of succession planning, but the bigger ones do. But I had a colleague who wrote a dissertation about how hardly any of the companies are doing that locally and in my area, and some of the problems that it's caused. So it's interesting that there are some organizations that are very on, up on, they've got somebody waiting in the wings, for each position that they've developed over time, and some don't do any of it. So whatever your organization is going through, because if your organization doesn't really have a good plan, that's all the more important. That's all the more valuable for your paper, because you could talk about how you're going to start that, implement that, and what that's going to look like. So that's what you need to do for week 1. Now, I know it's a little probably daunting to think, well, I'm going to have to start week 3, before week 3. But yeah, I would really highly recommend that you do, because it's kind of intensive. You're going to have a lot of work there, and you don't want to get caught at the last minute. So I'm posting this now, but I am going to post week 2 and week 3 videos next weekend. So normally I would post week 2, the day before week 2. But by the time this class starts, because it's not started yet, I'm going to post, it'll start Thursday, and I'm going to post the video on Saturday. So you should have be able to kind of work ahead and see, have me go over the assignments, because I think it's important that you have access to it as soon as you can. So I'm just going to bump it back and put them out there early. So if you have any questions on this week 1, I'm just scrolling through there. If you have any questions on week 1, let me know. So just another quick summary. You're creating a summary page. You're creating a comprehensive exam prep document, the first thoughts on it. So you're really getting to you're basically just starting it. But what you're doing here is creating an exam prep document for you to use later. I mean, that's exactly what you're doing. And it's going to break it down, the organizational behavior, down for you into categories for study. And then you're going to define those elements. So it's something you're going to use. And then, of course, the beginnings of your succession plan. And again, we'll get into, at the end, this is going to be much more than this. This is the start. So right now, worry about week 1 project discussion. And then we're going to talk about the rest of it and get into that in more detail later. But the final deliverable, for week 5 is a program. So, and a proposal of it. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. You're going to have some. Please don't be shy. This is very important that you get it right. So let me know, and I'll be happy to assist you. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.